about is when you get into a space where your life does not match the potential that
I feel this on a soul level because when you start getting into metaphysical things, you start to realize that there's like pretty much no limit to like what you can do. Like you're able to quite literally astral project. You're literally able to move things with your mind, traverse through different realities, dimensions, time travel even. And if you don't have the ability to fully integrate that knowledge and apply it, then you're kind of like living this weird human life, but you aren't fully immersed in it because you're so far aware of like what the potential of like where you want to go is. Like I've had the experience of accidentally traversing through parallel universes in which I've had experiences of interacting with friends and family members and different versions of them. I've had the experiences of having items that didn't exist within one reality pop into my reality, and then certain things even just disappearing. Having events change, having songs change, having all these different aspects that are pointing towards the capacity to consciously dive in and out of these different realities and these different experiences with the proper, I guess, focus or the proper level of integration and ability. Like, with what I understand, you can quite literally make it rain like $1 million. Like, quite fucking literally. And then to be bound then to this human experience where you're so limited, in which pretty much your human mind or your human programming is running on repeat for the exact opposite. It's like a very jarring experience sometimes. And then being in a space in which not many people at all are even privy to the knowledge that you have, much less being able to entertain it even being a thing. Like, with how humanity is, it's like there are so many people who believe there are certain things that are falling under a belief system, when in reality it's kind of like just advanced science that humans have not learned yet. So when you have people who are so disconnected from even entertaining anything that you're saying to even be a potential, much less an actual truth of how reality functions, and you're one of the only people who are kind of traversing through that, it can be jarring. It can be extremely jarring. One of the first things that I started posting about was the ability to manipulate the air, and I started posting tutorials and my minor experiences because I was able to replicate it to a minor degree, but nothing that is significant or that most people would maybe quantify as I guess significant evidence. It depends on the person because that's all very subjective. But from what most humans are wanting to observe and quantify as evidence, it's very hard to provide that with the current level of integration that I have within a certain ability. So then to have the experience of then trying to share whatever knowledge or experiences you have, and then have people not only simply be skeptical, which is understandable, but then to kind of almost attack you and antagonize you as a result of the knowledge that you're trying to share or that you have, it can be very frustrating sometimes. There are times where people even have like very base level understandings of these experiences, and then they try to maybe diminish the very, or I would say the deeper aspects of what this experience is as a result of what their superficial levels are. And that leads to a lot of people who are spiritual narcissists, a lot of people who then start to spiritually bypass and simply don't fully understand how this human experience interacts with these metaphysical concepts and how they are kind of intertwined, so to speak. Like, yes, you can manifest anything, but if you are programmed to believe that it's impossible to have $1 million rain out from the sky, it might impose a little bit of a limit. And when people approach these concepts, they tend to think of the most grandiose aspects of these and the most grandiose perfected versions of what is possible, and they just tend to overlook the fact that it could be potentially that there's like a muscle or that there's like a progression of the skill being able to be expressed, and then the variances in which this ability is then used. Like, in theory, it's just as easy to manifest a cup of coffee as it is to manifest $1 million. But because of our subconscious programming and because of the human experience in and of itself, that belief system isn't always as easily just shut off. And then it's not always as easy to simply jump into that version. The same thing goes for other aspects. Whether you're trying to manifest love, whether you're trying to manifest protection for yourself if you felt very vulnerable, whether you're trying to manifest pretty much anything that might be foreign to what your current experience is. And many people will just go under the assumption, or they will just use the base understanding of what manifestation is to simply say, oh, well, you're in the situation, you should just manifest yourself out of it. or you shouldn't have manifested that for yourself because you brought that on yourself, not understanding that there is a very large structure that manifestation falls under and that that it interacts with. For instance, imagine trying to manifest a cell phone if you were in the Middle Ages. There's just quite literally not the technology, the resources, or the capacity to do such within the paradigm that you are born into at that point. Now, it's not to say that, especially because where we are now, we have a lot more of an ability to manifest more than, ever before because of our levels of technology, and then, of course, the ability that we have as far as being able to even share knowledge, tap into each other's experiences, and then expand on them. But there's still limits to a certain degree that we are kind of navigating around, and we're able to break those limits. Yes, sure. But there's still a process in which we have to undergo to then break those. It's not something that for every case can simply just happen overnight. I've quite literally had a spiritual leader gaslight me into saying pretty much that I should manifest more money when I was going through a financial difficulty. And it's kind of like, that's if that were so fucking easy, I'd be living in a mansion. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. Like, I don't. The point I'm trying to make is there is a very large difference between knowing something intellectually and knowing the potential of something, and then the human ability to fully integrate that knowledge and that knowing. There is a very large gap. And of course, that gap can always get closed easier and easier the more that we shift our mindset into believing that it's simply that easy. Because if you believe it's easy, then it is. If you believe it's hard, it's hard. But, getting your mind to shift that belief over time, or getting your mind to kind of impose certain manifestations, sometimes there's just a little bit of resistance that is met. And that is just the process. And that's why many times they say, trust the process. You can't really rush the how or when, because our minds, we don't really know, we can't really fathom the best way that some manifestations will come into our experience, especially when there is certain energy and motion that might kind of contradict what we are trying to bring in certain ways. So the best thing that we could really do is stay persistent, continue to impose whatever we're trying to manifest into our subconscious mind, and allow things to unfold to the best of our ability. And whenever we do have very triggering or difficult moments or thoughts, do the best that we can to assess them and figure out where that is coming from, and from there, shift that narrative. Manifestation is not a one size fits all. So don't allow anybody, I don't care if they're some spiritual leader, I don't care if they're a guru, I don't care if they claim they're motherfucking Mary, don't allow anybody to impose their limited perspective of how your life, their limited perspective of what manifestation is, to impact your physical experience. You understand what you're going through, you understand your steps, you understand your process, and there's nothing wrong with gaining knowledge and trying to expand on that and taking wisdom from other people. But there's also the other spectrum of not simply dismissing or diminishing what another human's experience is, and the attempts to simply not have to deal with it because you believe that you know better. Like, that's just not the case. Peace and blessings. I hope you guys have a great day. And if there are any questions about manifestation, I teach this shit, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer pretty much anything. I put a lot of time and effort into trying my best to make sure that I can meet people where they are, as well as being able to break down the information that I have in a way that is digestible for other people to be able to experience and integrate it in the best way. Peace and blessings. I hope you guys have a great day.